I recently presented at Deep Dish Swift 2025 in Chicago, and the event was live streamed and powered by Tramline. So I'm grateful to Josh Holtz, the conference organizer, who allowed me to extract my presentation and load it here on my channel. It was a fantastic conference, not one to be missed. So I hope you enjoy my presentation.
We now have Stewart Lynch, who was supposed to be here last year and could not, so I've been awaiting this talk, no pressure, for a while. And I got the title wrong. It's Hidden Gems for Swift and SwiftUI.
Can people hear me? Good, good. Actually, it's more, the topic is more, why didn't I know that? And there's a lot of things I don't know. But I was scheduled to be here last year and do a talk, and decided to take a vacation just before I came down, and caught a flight from Vancouver, where I live, spent a couple of days in Vegas, and went on to San Diego to take a cruise back to Vancouver, and somewhere along there I caught COVID. Spent the repositioning cruise basically in my cabin, coughing and hacking. So I had to cancel at the last minute, so it was really nice of Josh to invite me to come back and speak again this year. Eventually I'll catch my breath and I won't hyperventilate, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, just a little bit about myself. My name is Stewart Lynch, and I am a senior iOS developer at Createch Solutions. And I can say senior because I am the only developer at Createch Solutions. And it kind of reflects my age rather than my skills, because I consider myself more of an intermediate skilled developer. And I learn from everybody else. That is my main thing, is that I share only what I learn. And there's an awful lot of things that I don't know. But just a little bit of history about myself. I spent 32 years in education, so yes, I am old. That was the first 32 years, and I keep on reinventing myself, but I had 11 years as a classroom teacher, where I started in 1975, so this is going back probably before most of you were born. Well, before every one of you were born. And 11 years as a math teacher, and eventually computers were invented, and I started to teach computer science. And I spent 2 years going from school to school as a roving teacher, teaching teachers how to implement technology into their classroom. And then I decided I'd better get some administrative experience, and spent 3 years in hell as a vice principal at a secondary school. The worst job in the system. And then I managed, and during that time they had no direction at the district, so they invented a new position called the Director of Technology, and I got that job. And moved into a district role where I was able to manage technology, and then went off to another school district where I managed technology for not only the education side, but the corporate side as well. So it was great. I was in full control. So in 2007, though, I took an early retirement and went and worked for a software company called OpenText, and I spent 7 years in the private sector. But in 2014, like a lot of these big companies do, they acquire smaller divisions and then get what they want out of them, and then they make everybody redundant. And so in 2014, I was made redundant, and I was too old to get another job. So I had to reinvent myself again. And so what I did was this was in 2014, and fortuitously, that's when Swift was released. And I watched the WWDC video, and I thought, yes, this is for me. This is my new life. And I quickly created a whole number of apps. Most of them were UIKit, got them on the App Store, had 12. And then in 2019, I decided to do something a little bit different. I thought, I spent all this time not teaching myself. I don't consider myself a self-taught developer. I consider myself a self-directed learner, because I learn from everybody else, and I take direction from everybody else, and I love to be able to share that experience with you. So I have a YouTube channel that some of you may have seen my videos. There's 375 of them. Yeah, well, that makes me feel good, because I was worried that I wouldn't be known when I arrived. Anyway, they're mostly on Swift and SwiftUI topics, and I do one every week. I released another one this morning, got up early and released another video. I'm always looking for new ideas. So I'm often asked, why do you do something like this? Why do you spend the time creating YouTube videos. And my videos take me at least 3 days to create, every one of them, because I do a lot of research and put a lot of time into them. And I found this app that's called Left, and it's a really interesting app. What it does is when you open it up, it tells you how many days are left in the current month. So today is April 27th, 3 days left. You tap on it one more time, it tells you how many days are left in the year. And here's where I have to go because my eyesight's so bad. 248 days left in this year. Then you get to enter your birth date. And you enter your birth date, and it tells you how much longer you've got to live. My birthday is on Friday. I turned 74 on Friday. That means this is going to drop down to 1 year. That's only 52 videos left, folks. So anyway, I bought the app, I made the purchase, and it allowed me to enter my risk factors. So I'm pretty active, I stay active, so now I have 6 years left. Okay, that's good. But the really good news is that I'm Canadian. And I don't know if you know this, the average Canadian expected lifespan is 3 years longer than Americans. And that's an American app, I believe, so I have 9 years or maybe 7, 8 years left to live. Whew. Okay, I'm starting to relax. Anyway, now we can get on to the topic. Well, why didn't I know that? Or why don't I know that? And there are an awful lot of reasons why the person sitting next to you knows something that you don't know, or you know something that the person sitting next to you doesn't know. And the reasons that I've sort of come up with, or to be honest with you, ChatGPT came up with, and I just use them, but they're accurate. Because Swift and SwiftUI are rapidly evolving. You just cannot simply keep up. You may have a framework bias. You may be Objective-C, all this cheery, I had to say it at least once, or your UI kit, or now you just started learning a few years back in your SwiftUI, and there's all this other content that you have never experienced. There's the complexity or inaccuracy of the Apple documentation. It's not always accurate, it's often incomplete. You may have missed an awful lot of stuff during your learning. When you watch WWDC videos, a lot of content comes at you, but it's not complete. So how do you discover what's under the covers from all that content? You've got your own depth and breadth of experience, so you may be working for a company that focuses only on certain APIs, and now you're expected to learn something new, and that completely flew under the radar for you, so now you've got to learn something. And you may have a cognitive bias. I mean, I don't find that here in this community, but certainly in other communities and on Reddit, you've got people who know everything, and you can't tell them anything. And I've got a couple of people that watch my videos that like to tell me that as well. But I think one of the bigger reasons why you might not know something is that there might be a lack of your community involvement. And I think that's got to be the biggest key. You've got to be involved and come to things like this, be involved in some of the social media channels that you might follow, because that's where I get my information from. I get it from everyone else. I get directed by everybody else. And so you are not alone. So what I want to do is I want to start with some posts that I found within the last year of people that you probably will recognize a lot of their names, who posted things that they didn't know that I knew. So I was feeling pretty good about it. First case was Casey Liss, who's one of the hosts of the Accidental Tech podcast, very prominent developer. And he posted this post that he had no idea, and he thought he was the only one that he didn't know this. Turns out he wasn't. That you can present a sheet based on something besides a binding to a Boolean property. And this was not new to me, and I'm sure it's not new to most of you, but it was new to him, very prominent developer. And he realized that there you can bind a sheet or present a sheet based on a binding to an optional identifiable object. Very interesting topic. And along with that, a few years back, if anybody can pronounce this name, you can shout it out because I can't. Mate Kaspar Jurasik, he suggested or presented in a tweet, this was on Twitter, that you can take an enum and conform it to the view protocol. And if you conform an enum to a view protocol, all it requires is a body property. And then, therefore, the case that is your enum becomes your view. So I took that concept along with what Casey List discovered and decided that what I wanted to be able to do was to present 3 different sheets on a view. And a number of years ago, Malin posted something on Twitter about presenting multiple sheets on a view. And I took that concept and applied it with this enum and realized that if I want to present 3 different types of views on this as the actions to these sheets, these buttons, I want to present just any kind of a view, or I want to present a view that's going to have an associated value with it on that sheet. So that's a perfect case for an enum. So we can present 3 different cases. One is just simple, and then the other 2, one would have a string as an associated value, another have an integer. And I can conform that to the identifiable protocol, which is going to require an ID property. But I can also conform it to the view protocol, which requires a body. And then I can switch on the case, and I get the associated values. So in the first case, I can just present any view, like a text view, and have a fixed string in there, static string. Or I can take that associated value and pass it in, whether that be a string or an integer. So if we have that enum that is now identifiable, conforms to the view protocol, I can go back to my view and say, let me create a state property where that sheet type is an optional sheet type. And then each action here from my button, I can present or assign a different case to that enum. So simple, I can pass in a string as the associated value, or I can pass in an integer as an associated value. And now I have all the criteria I need to present sheets. So I can take that sheet and say it's bound to this sheet type that's going to give me some kind of identifiable object, which in fact is the case of the sheet type, which itself is a view. So now we can just take that whole thing and reduce it just down to $0, add a presentation detent, and now I can have this simple case here where the enum is managing my views, and in each case I can present a different sheet based on the button. I use this all the time, and I'm always surprised when people say that they didn't know it. So if you've heard this before, well, it's too bad. It's worth repeating. It's always worth repeating. Okay, that's the longest one. The rest aren't as long. Hopefully not quite as boring. I don't know if you're familiar with Sehat's work. He's the developer of Freemium Kit, Translation Kit, and more recently, Error Kit. He just learned that there is a non-optional API to convert strings to data. Because what he had always done, and what I had always done as well, is if I have this string, and I want to convert that string to data, I would then convert the string to data using the specified encoding of UTF-8. The trouble with that is that it could fail. Would seldom fail, but it could fail, in which case then your data object is optional, so you'd have to use an if-let to unwrap it. And then what Sehat discovered was that you can simply take that data and take the string and convert it to a collection of UTF-8 bytes and wrap it in an actual data object, and it's no longer optional. So I hadn't known that, but he shared that with others, and I thought that was worthwhile. Now here's another one that I thought was kind of interesting, because I saw Peter Friese a couple of years back do a Command-Shift-A, bring up the command menu, and he discovered that in the command menu that there's a way to take a screenshot of a preview. And so I went looking for it in the Xcode menus and discovered that it was under the editor menu, under, where is that, Canvas, and you can take a screenshot. God, my eyes are bad. Export preview screenshot. And when you do that, it brings up simply a save dialog where you can save it, and then you can use whatever you want to create your screenshots by adding your frames around it. And of course, I love Charlie Chapman's Frames app, which has absolutely been gone off the limits in this latest release. This is the older release. You can just drag it in there, and you've got yourself a screenshot with the correct frame around it. So when I was looking at that menu item, I discovered something else, that besides saving that screenshot from that same menu item, there's the option to copy from the preview and get a direct copy of that screen. And notice that I've actually applied keyboard shortcuts to those two menu items because I use them so often. And when you do that, you just take that screenshot, bring up Charlie's app, and just do a Command V, and you're now pasted into there. Now, that was new to me because I'd always used something like Anton's app on the simulator to take a screenshot. RocketSim, sorry, yeah. But this does it with transparent backgrounds. I use it, all of my movies were created using RocketSim, I have to tell you, okay? Anyway, so I posted this, and then I was kind of surprised that Charlie said, hey, I didn't know that. And then Peter Friese picked it up. Peter Friese is the developer relations at Google. And he picked up on it, and he says, whoa, you know, that was fantastic. And I said, Peter, I learned that from you. And his response was, it sounded generally new to him. So it just goes to show you that you may learn something, but you don't always retain it. And that's certainly the case the older you get. I'll tell you that right now. So oftentimes you learn things where problems are solved that you've had to work around for years. You've done things one way over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden somebody says, did you know that you can do that with one line of code? And so there's a couple that came up. One of them, this I thought was fantastic, was new. And by the way, if you're not noticing, I'm giving credit at the bottom right of everybody who posted those links, because they aren't me that are suggesting these things. There are other people. And if I've got this navigation title, I'm not specifying what size that is, so by default it's a large navigation title. And if I add a trailing toolbar button, it shows up on the right and you've got all this space up above it. Well, did you know that you can make this inline by using a navigation bar title mode inline? But did you realize that there is another type of title display mode? And that instead of navigation bar title display mode, you can use toolbar title display mode. And toolbar title display mode has another option of inline large. So you can reduce, right? Is that new to anybody? Okay. Good, I got one. Anyway, so that's fantastic because you've reduced all this space, and I've always wanted to be able to do that. The trouble with that, though, is if you add that's what it looks like. There's the old version, and here's the new version, which I think is nice. But if you add a leading toolbar button, it doesn't display. So you have to go back to, obviously, the inline with the smaller toolbar, either the toolbar title display mode, or you can go back to the large to get your two buttons. So that was good. This is another one that was new to me. I use widgets all the time on my apps, and they've got configurations. And I always hate the fact that when people add a widget to the screen, they do that search, they open up the widget, and they add it to the screen, and it sits there, and it waits and waits and waits, and the users don't know what to do. So they all end up with the default. But they have to tap on it to bring up the widget screen. I had no idea that this was the case, but there is one option that calls prompts user for configuration that was introduced sometime that it just flew right by me. So now, with that one simple addition to your app intent, when users add a new widget to the screen, they search for it, they add it, and as soon as it gets added to the screen, it automatically opens up and allows you to change. Did everybody know that besides me? Yes? Thanks. I didn't know that. And why didn't I know that? I don't know. Scroll content fitting. Here's another one. I had all these workarounds because here I've got a scroll view with some text that is bound to a slider that changes the font size, and I can increase that and grade its scrolls, and I get back to this size here and still scrolling. And then somewhere along the line, a new modifier was scroll bounce behavior, just specifying inline. So now I can enlarge that size all I want. It'll scroll, but when it gets back and fits on the screen, it no longer scrolls. So I was using view that fits and VStacks and all those kinds of things. That one modifier that somebody put in, was it ever announced? I don't know. Okay, what else am I doing? Natalia Pamfirova. She's got this book that's called Swift Gems that was recently updated. She used to work for Apple. I could have done a whole talk just on her gems. It's fantastic. And recently she did this tweet that I thought was really, really good because I don't pay an awful lot of attention to different languages. But here I've got this view that I want to present on my screen. It's really three different views. It's the tortilla chips with the spicy hot red peppers that's got a foreground style of red and dip on the end. So how do you compose that and put that on your view? Well, you can use three separate views with a plus in between, and they just get joined together. But if you want to sell your app in another language, like French, you're going to use string catalogs to translate that. And so it goes off and does the translations of each one of those three different strings. No problem. I'm not going to be pronouncing this. I might try it, but it probably won't be very good. And anyway, the trouble is when you do that, you end up with this chips tortilla avec épicé trempé, which is wrong. Because in French, the adjective comes after the verb, or after the noun, rather than before the noun. That's an incorrect translation. So what Natalia suggested is that instead of doing this, you just take one big text view, tortilla chips with, and then embed that second text view inside using string interpolation with the formatted style. So now that you've got that, not only is it easier to manage, when you use string catalogs, you are now just getting two strings, and you can choose where you want to move that inside one around. By the way, at the end, I'm going to share a link where I've created a web page that has links to all of this content, so you don't have to take pictures. So pay attention, Jordy. So it gets it right. I like it when all the all-stars are sitting in front and I can heckle them instead of them heckling me. Here's another one. I don't pay enough attention to accessibility needs, though I should, because you can see I'm having to switch my glasses. You ever take a look at a phone of somebody my age? And they open up, and this text is absolutely huge. And have you designed your app to work with those guys? Us guys? Well, I haven't done a very good job. So here's an example. I've got this string that's today's date. I've set a frame of width of 300, and I set a red border around that. And it's using dynamic type, and right now this is the default large. Now, some people can set their phone to many different sizes, and there are many. The trouble is, as it gets larger and larger, you lose that text because I set a line limit of 1. And it can go all the way up to, what is it, AX5. And when you reach AX5, you're not even seeing the date. So what's the solution that you'd use? Well, the solution I'd use is, well, that's easy. I just set a minimum scale factor and set that minimum scale factor down to 0.5. And now, okay, great. It's going to stay in there. But people my age can't read this anymore, right? But it's still working. Right? It's working. My view is still functioning properly, but eventually it's going to get truncated again. I'm going to have to go back and change that scale factor to 0.3 in order for it to fit. So what Sarush suggested to do is to, instead of taking that fixed string, is to actually take that string, let me just move on here we go, and make it into a computed property that's going to return an array of string. And then as the first item in that array, use that one that you want to be your default, but then create 4 more options that are going to adapt to the larger sizes. And then if you do that, we can then take our text view, and instead of having that fixed one case only, replace that with a view that fits in the horizontal, and then use a for each loop in between, and it's identifiable. Now I've got this title that I can present in the text view itself. And as I increase my text, it's going to decide the first one that fits. So I've got a solution that is going to be readable on all devices. You're going to have to adjust the vertical, but at least your horizontal is working, right? Embed it in a scroll view with that one modifier, and you're perfect. Okay. So, those things were kind of new to me, but sometimes you get things that are absolutely new to you. And so this is something that I had no idea. 375 videos. Every one of my videos has got a starter project, and they are all developed before last year or the year before preview macros came out. And so I have all these preview providers. Do I go back and update my code and change all these preview providers to a preview macro? Yeah, it's real easy. All you have to do is right-click and say, convert to preview macro. I had no idea that was available. And it even works for things like this, where you've got preview interface orientation, and you've got the display name and stuff like that. Right-click, convert to preview macro, and it does it for you. So that was new to me. What it doesn't do is it doesn't take that constant and then use that previewable state with where you can actually now have an interactive preview modifier. A lot of previews get a bad rap, but I guess most of my apps are so simple that I don't run into a problem with them. But I think they're fantastic, actually, especially for developing. Hierarchical styles is something that I had no idea existed. And so Mikola taught me this. Here I've got this color view, just 3 circles stacked in the V-stack that you can apply secondary, tertiary, quaternary, and quinary, however you say that, to a color view, and it adapts for you both in light and dark mode. Now, Natalia Panfarova took it to another level, and she's talking about hierarchical backgrounds. So here I have an H stack with 2 cats, and I'm using a background style or a system background UI color. And because that's the same color as the background view, you're not seeing any background on these views. So I'm going to take that H stack and embed it in and the cat view itself is just these cats, right? That are system image. And I'm going to take that H stack and I'm going to embed it in a V stack, and I'm going to create 2 more of these. So because I haven't applied a background, nothing changes. But I can apply background styles as well. So there's a background secondary and a background tertiary, which is your first column. The second column is using the UI colors, and they look exactly the same, both in light and dark mode. And so I was playing around with this, and I thought, I'm going to get really fancy. I'm going to put it in a group. So I'm going to change that V stack to a group. And when I do that, it's no longer the same. So you've got to be really careful when you are applying background styles as opposed to fixed UI colors that are representations of a background, because in light and dark mode, it probably is a little bit more easier to see that a background style itself uses the background in the current context, and a group box is different than just a V stack that inherits from the view itself. I love this one. You watch the WWC videos, you download their sample project, and they've got a Readme file there, and the Readme looks really good. Whereas my open source projects, my Readme looks like this, which is absolutely useless to somebody who's opening my project. And so, Jack, I asked this question on Twitter or Mastodon, wherever it was at the time. Jack Field says, well, that's really easy. All you have to do is find the location of your project file. So I can just right-click in here and just actually show the file and get to my project file, and then open the project file's contents, right? And make sure that you've got hidden files, or show hidden files, so Command-Shift period. And then you can simply just drag in here a special plist that is named Xcode sample code.plist with a period in front. You just create a generic plist, but you change the root from a dictionary to an array. I mean, it's really logical, right? Really logical. And when you do that, you can come back to your view, open your README file, and it looks great. I wish I had invented that, actually. So I thought that was really cool. So now all your open source projects are going to look fantastic, right? Compositing group. I call this composting group, but I get it wrong. Here I have a circle, frame of 150. I'm going to add, embed it in a Z stack. I should say Z stack as a Canadian, just to be patriotic. And then I'm going to add a rectangle with a frame and width half the height, or the radius basically of the circle, and offset it by that distance, and I've got this funny looking object. And if I apply a foreground style of red to that object, it applies to both of those things together. But if you apply a shadow, the shadow gets applied to both together. But what you can do is, and this is Enid, Learn and Code with Enid, if you've ever seen his, used to be primarily on LinkedIn, but now he's on all the other social platforms as well. He shared one day that there's this thing called Compositing Group, and that joins the two things together, and you get this. And I think, well, this is really cool because you can do things like this, where I've got this 3 views inside of a Z-stack, 2 of them using system images and one's just a text view. And I've applied a shadow that's now getting applied to all 3 of those. So I can flatten that out by using a compositing group. But then there's one other modifier that you can apply that says blend mode, destination mode out. That removes those things from the front view. And then I can embed that in a Z-stack and then add some nice images like pictures of Chicago and get a nice representation. So, you know, your splash screens or your opening screens or whatever can look actually pretty good, right? Okay. You know, all these people should be getting the credit. Now, there are a number of things that have nothing to do with Swift or SwiftUI. So there's 3 that I want to, how's my time? Okay. Three things here before I get into something else that I call quality of life. They're completely unrelated to Swift and SwiftUI. And just saw them one day that somebody posted it. And this one I thought was really cool. I use the archive app to archive, zip up things or compress them. And so what I didn't realize, or what I learned from Lucas, that if I look at the permissions of this, or the settings, you can go into the archive app and you can specify absolutely what kind of archive you want. So I always want mine to be zip files. And then I can also specify where do I want those things saved every time I compress. So I can then select a folder like this one here I've got, drag it in, and now everything is going to get saved to that folder, and once they've been zipped up, I can say open that folder so that I can find it. So it's not just on my desktop all the time. And then I can make sure that I keep it in the dock, and then I can quit the application. And now I can just drag onto the archive app, and it zips it up and moves it to that folder. And the beauty of this is I can take 3 independent things, like these 3, and drag and drop onto the dock, and it zips them all up independently, and then moves them into that folder. I had no idea that that was a possibility. So thanks to Lucas for that. Another thing that I have been doing an awful lot of is using custom GPTs with a ChatGPT Plus account. So it costs me, I think, $20 Canadian a month or something like that, but it's well worth it. And you can see up on the top left of the screen here, I've got 2 that I've created. The first one here is the GPT that is the transcript. I use Jordy's Mac Whisper to translate all of my YouTube videos, get the transcripts. You can upload 20 files to a private ChatGPT, but that doesn't mean you can't zip up a whole bunch of them together. So I got like, I don't know how many, 30 or 40 in each one. Uploaded it to here, so now if anybody wants to find out if I ever said anything on any topic, they can actually find that under the ChatGPT store for free and get it, and then query to find out if I ever did anything, and it'll give you sample code based on what I did or didn't know. Another thing and that one's public to everybody. Another one is I live in what we call a strata in British Columbia where I live. It's like a homeowners association where we've got 5 homes that are in one property, and we all have to share common property. And we're run by our own strata council. And if you've ever lived in an organization like that where you have to deal with strata councils, you know that you have to be absolutely correct when you make a motion or you're proposing an amendment to a bylaw. So I scraped the British Columbia Strata Property Act for all of the content, posted it and made it into a private ChatGPT. I also found a bunch of newsletters from a company that does a lot of questions and answers. And I now can, amongst my friends, share that link so that they can, if they have a problem with their Stratus, just ask a question. I thought that was pretty cool. There's another alternative that you can create a project, and in here you can save all your private or all your GPTs related to a particular project. So if you pay for the Plus account, that's really good. I actually have one in here that is my Kia Sportage PHEV. I have a plug-in hybrid. Have you ever opened up one of those auto manuals and tried to find anything in them? Anybody can actually do this. Just open with ChatGPT and upload the manuals and ask the question and ask it for the page number in the manual to find out how to roll down that window or whatever. I had a problem folding the back seat down from the back seat. I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, it found it for me. So anyway, I was thinking, okay, well, I need some more private GPTs, and you go to the website. You can't do it on the client. And you can tap on your profile, and you can find your GPTs, and you'll see that I've got 2 of them in here. And you can create your own private GPT. And when you do that, you get to specify some things. So for example, you can specify what you want for your name. You can give it a description. But what's really good is you can give it instructions. And you can say, I want you to pretend that you are a software developer. And I want you to, based on the content that I am uploading, tell me where you found that content and tell me what page it is, and make sure you give me code samples. Well, I buy a lot of books, and I want those books to be my source of expertise. So I've got all of Daniel's books. I got Mark Moykin's books, if you're familiar with him. I got Paul Hudson's books. I got Natalia's books, and there are 19 of them here. I simply uploaded those things to my own private GPT, and I can create it. Now, I can't share that content because it's not my content. It's Daniel's and it's other people's. So one of the options is to make sure that this GPT could be just for you. So this is just for me, but that's my content, so I feel okay doing it. Is that okay, Daniel? Yes. Okay. And I can create that GPT, but I'm not sharing it with anybody. And then I can go back to the client, because now it's available in the client, and I can ask whatever question that I want, and it's going to source and look through those documents, and it's going to tell me exactly which pages and which of those books that content is in. That's a great resource, because I'm asking my experts now. I'm not getting fabrications. It's just looking for that content. And the final one that I have to share with you is I use Mastodon. Mastodon is now where I find all of the people that I want to connect with that have content that I can get. I still am on the other platforms. I'm going more on BlueSky as well. But in Mastodon, and this happens to me no matter what the platform is, I will post something and I'll forget what I posted and where did I post it and when did I post it. And I had no idea that Mastodon has this elastic search that you can just go from, and it gives you a colon, and you can then just type in me and do a search, and it's going to find all of the posts that you made on Mastodon. Now I can scroll down and find all that stuff that I had posted. I had no idea. I used to have to go to my profile and try and find it from my profile. It was a zoo. But not only can I find stuff from me, I can find stuff from, I can find from me with a search term of, say, navigation, and it's just going to find all the posts that I did on navigation. Or if the person is on this instance and I'm on iOS dev.space, I can then go and then simply change it. Instead of from me, I can say, for example, from Deep Dish Swift, and find the post that Deep Dish Swift put on that server when I recorded this. But if you're not on this instance, like Daniel at Dim Sum Thinking is on Mastodon Social, I can change that from and specify his full link. And I know he does a lot of work on testing, so I can add testing and find all the posts that Daniel did on testing, and I can scroll down and I can find that one post that he did where he posted his video when he was at that Pragma conference and view that. So I know that I saw something somewhere. Now I have a way on Mastodon to find it. So please, if you're not on Mastodon, get on board because it's a fantastic resource. So they pay me for that. So where do I look? Well, my wife and I get up at about 6:15 in the morning, every morning. She goes to her room and reads the newspaper. I go to my room, I open up my iPad, and I start looking at all of my social media feeds, my Mastodon, my BlueSky, my LinkedIn. I check out all the blogs. I read the newsletters that come to my mailboxes, like Anton's newsletters. I read Medium. I watch YouTube videos. But I don't read all this stuff. I make note of it for future reference. So somehow you have to have a way to curate your discoveries. And there are a number of different ways that one can do that. But there are some requirements. And those requirements are that it has to be available for me on iPad, iOS, and macOS, because I use those 3 devices all the time. It has to sync somewhere, like to iCloud or to Dropbox or whatever. I have to be able to categorize it, because if I am going to be creating a video sometime in the future, I want to make sure that it's categorized so I can find it quickly in whatever tool that I'm using. And it has to be done easily with, like, say, a share sheet or a web extension. So there you can use some read later services. I've used all of these, by the way. You can use Notes. You can use Notion that has a nice extension. Or you can use dedicated software. And the 3 that I've used that are great are Bridges, Plinky by Joe Fabisevich, that has just come out with a beta for the Mac version, so I'm going to have to take another look at it because it hadn't met my requirements at the time. So what I've been using is something that's called Raindrop.io. I think is a great bookmark manager. It allows me to find the content that I want. Within the last year or so, I've had about 1,000 of them. When I was thinking about this talk here after I bailed last year, I accumulated, how many is that? 63, thank you. God, don't get old, folks. 63 of them, of which I cast 9 out, and I came up with 16, and I think I shared maybe 12 or 13 of them because my first talk was like 90 minutes long. And then with this app here, if I open it up, I can actually view in line with an offline version or go directly to the web. So I think it's a pretty good tool, but the other ones are great as well. So this just gives me quick access to the content that I need. But that content wouldn't be available were it not for the people who share that content. And I can't emphasize this enough. If you don't know something or you've discovered something, don't be afraid to share it because other people won't know it either. And I really recommend that you do that. So as I said, I've got this web link, and the link is at the bottom here, but I'm going to share the link on the next page here, where you can actually go and find all of that content with links on the side that'll take you directly to one of those tips, one of the slides that I did. And I've even got a rehearsal of this presentation now as the video as the first of this thing here. So if you didn't get this one, you might get a better version by watching me sit on my desk and record it. So anyway, you've been great, and I really appreciated people that have come up and talked to me over the last day here. And yeah, I'm just overwhelmed. There's famous people here that actually know me, and so I feel so good. So there are 3 links here. The first one is to my YouTube channel. If you don't like watching videos, that's not a problem. I understand that. But you know that you can listen to me at 1.5 speed, because one of the complaints I get is that I talk so slow, or it takes me long to build up to what the content really is. I also have chapter marks in my description, so skip the introduction and go right to the meat. So that's my YouTube channel. Bento.me is where you can find all of my links, and then that last link down at the bottom is where the link to this talk with a video and the links to it. So thanks for listening.